Good evening, Carl from Recording Studio Oxford. Now we're moving on to the second part of Chapter 2, Kaa's Hunting. Meanwhile, Baloo and Bagheera, furious with rage and grief. Bagheera climbed as he had never climbed before, but the thin branches broke beneath his weight, and he slipped down, his claws full of bark. Why didst thou not warn the man-cub? He roared to poor Baloo, who set off at a clumsy trot in the hope of overtaking the monkeys. What was the use of half slaying with blows if thou didst not warn him? Haste, oh haste, we may catch them yet. At that speed, it will not tire a wounded cow, teacher of the law, cub beater. A mile of that rolling to and fro would burst thee open. Sit still and think. Make a plan. This is no time for chasing. They may drop him if we follow too close. Arula, whoop, they may have dropped already, being tired of carrying him. Who can trust the Bandar log? Put dead bats on my head. Give me black bones to eat. Roll me in the hives of the wild bees, that I may be stung to death, and bury me with the hyena from the most miserable of bears. Arulala, Wahua, O Mowgli, Mowgli, why did I not warn thee that the monk and Kifo consider breaking thy head? Now perhaps I may have knocked the day's lesson out of his mind, and he will be alone in the jungle without the master words. Baloo clasped his paws over his ears, and rolled to and fro moaning. At last he gave me all the words correctly a little time ago, said Bagheera impatiently. Baloo, thou hast neither memory nor respect. What would the jungler think if I, the Black Panther, curled myself like Iki the Porcupine and howled? What do I care what the jungle thinks? He may be dead by now. Unless and until they drop him from the branches in sport, or kill him out of idleness, I have no fear for the man-cub. He is wise and well taught, and above all has eyes that make the jungle people afraid. But, and it is a great evil, he is in the power of the Bandar log, and they, because they live in trees, have no fear of any of our people. Bagheera licked one forepaw thoughtfully. Fool that I am, oh fat, brown, root-digging fool that I am, said Baloo, uncoiling himself with a jerk. It is true that what Hathi the wild elephant says, to each his own fear, and they, the Bandar log, fear Kaa the rock snake. He can climb as well as they can. He steals young monkeys in the night. The whisper of his name makes their wicked toils cold. Let us go to Kaa. What will he do us? He is none of our tribe, being footless, and with the most evil eyes. He is very old and very cunning. Above all, he is always hungry, said Baloo hopefully. Promise him many goats. He sleeps for a full month after once he has eaten. He may be asleep now, and even were he awake, what would he rather kill than his own goats? Bagheera did not know much about Kaa and was naturally suspicious. Then in that case thou and I together, old hunter, might make him see reason. Here Baloo rubbed his faded brown shoulder against the panther and went going off to look for Kaa, the rock python. They found him stretched out on a warm ledge in the afternoon sun, admiring his beautiful new coat. For he had been in retirement for the last 10 days, changing his skin, and now he was very splendid, darting his big, blunt-nosed head along the ground, twisting 30 feet of his body into fantastic knots and curves, and licking his lips as he thought of his dinner to come. He has not eaten, said Baloo, with a grunt of relief, as soon as he saw the beautifully mottled brown and yellow jacket. Be careful, Bagheera. He is always a little blind after he has changed his skin, and very quick to strike. Kaa was not a poison snake. In fact, he rather despised the poison snakes as cowards, but his strength lay in his hug, and when Sid wrapped his huge coils around anyone, there was no more to be said. Good hunting, cried Baloo, sitting up from his haunches. Like all snakes of his breed, Kaa was rather deaf, and at first did not hear the call. Then he curled up, ready for any accidents, his head lowered. Good hunting for us all, he answered. Oh-ho, Baloo, what dost thou here? Good hunting, Bagheera. One of us at least needs food. Is there news of new game afoot? A doe now, or even a young buck? I'm as empty as a dry well. We are hunting, said Baloo carelessly. You knew you must not hurry Kaa. He is too big. Give me permission to come with you, said Kaa. A blow is nothing less to thee, Bagheera or Baloo, but I have to wait and wait for days in the wood path and climb half a night on the mere chance of a young ape. Pshaw! The branches are not what they were when I was young. Rotten twigs and dry boughs are they all. Maybe thy great weight has something to do with the matter, said Baloo. I'm a fair length, said Kaa with a little pride. But for all that, it is the fault of this new-grown timber. Came very near to falling on my last hunt, very near indeed. The noise of my slipping, for my tail was not tight wrapped on the tree, woke the Bandar log, and they called him most evil names. Footless yellow earthworm, said Bagheera under his whiskers, as though he was trying to remember something. Sssst! Have they ever called me that? Said Kaa. Something of that kind it was that they shouted at us last moon, but we never noticed them. They will say anything, even that thou hast lost all thy teeth, and will not face anything bigger than a kid, because they are indeed shameless, these Bandar log, because thou art afraid of the he-goat's horn, said Bagheera very sweetly. Now a snake, especially a weary old python like Kaa, very seldom shows that he's angry, but Baloo and Bagheera could show the big swallowing muscles on either sides of Kaa's throat ripple and bulge. The Bandar log have shifted their grounds, he said quietly. When I came on the sun today, I had them whooping on the treetops. It is the Bandar log that we follow now, said Baloo, but the words stuck in his throat. It was the first time in his memory one of the jungle people had owned to being interested in the doings of monkeys. Beyond doubt, then, is no a small thing that takes two such hunters, leader in their own jungle, and I am certain, on the trail of the Bandar log, replied Kaa courteously, as he swelled with curiosity. Indeed, Baloo began, I am no more than the old and sometimes very foolish teacher of the law to the Seeonee wolf cubs, and Bagheera here is Bagheera, said the Black Panther, and his jaws shut with a snap, for he did not believe in being humble. The trouble is this, Kaa. Those nut stealers and pickers of palm leaves have stolen away our man cub, whom thou hast perhaps heard. I heard news from Ikki, his quills make him presumptuous, of a man-thing that was entered into a wolf pack. But I did not believe. Ikki is full of stories half heard and very badly told. But it is true. He is such a man-cub as there never was, said Baloo, the best and wildest and boldest of man-cub, my own pupil, who shall make the name of Baloo famous through all the jungles, and besides, we love him, Kaa. Tss, tss, said Kaa, weaving his head to and fro. I also have known what love is. There are tales that I could tell that. They need a clear night when all are well fed to praise properly, said Bagheera quickly. Our man covers in the hands of the Bandar log now, and we know that of all the jungle people they fear Kaa alone. They fear Mera alone. They have good reason, said Kaa. Chattering, foolish, vain, foolish, and chattering are the monkeys. But a man thing in their hands is in no good luck. They grow tired of the nuts they pick and they throw them down. They carry a branch half a day, meaning to do great things with it, and then they snap it in two. The man thing is not to be envied. They also called me Yellowfish, was it not? Worm, Earthworm, said Bagheera, as well as other things I cannot now say for shame. We must remind them to speak well of their master. Asp! We must help their wandering memories. Now whither went they with the man-cub? The jungle alone knows. Towards sunset, I believe, said Baloo. Wouldst thought that thou wouldst know, Kaa. Aye? How? I take them when they come my way, but I do not hunt the Bandar log, or frogs, or green scummer on the water-hole for that matter. Up, lo, up, look up, Baloo of the Seeonee wolf pack. Baloo looked up to see where the voice had come from, and there was Ran the kite, sweeping down with the sun shining on the upturned flanges of his wings. It was near Ran's bedtime, but he had ranged all over the jungle looking for the bear and had missed him in the thick foliage. What is it? Said Baloo. I've seen Mowgli among the Bandar log. He bade me tell you. I watched. The Bandar log have taken him beyond the river to the monkey sitter to the Cold Lairs. They may stay there for a night, or 10 nights, or an hour. I have told the bats to watch through the dark time. That is my message. Good hunting, all you below. Full gorge and a deep sleep to you, Ran, cried Bagheera. I will remember thee in my next kill, and put aside the head for thee alone, O best of kites. It is nothing, it is nothing. The boy held the master word. I could have done no less, said Ran, and circled up again to his roost, I should say, Carl. He has not forgotten to use his tongue, said Baloo with a chuckle of pride. To think one so young remembers the master word for birds while he was being pulled across the trees. It was most firmly driven into him, said Bagheera, but I'm proud of him. I now must go to the Cold Lairs. They all knew of that place was, but few of the jungle people ever went there, because what they called the Cold Lairs was an old deserted city, lost and buried in the jungle, and beasts seldom use a place that men have once used. The wild boar will, but the hunting tribes do not. Besides, the monkeys lived there as much as they could be said to live anywhere. No self-respecting animal will come short of it, except in times of drought, when the half-ruined tanks and reservoirs held a little water. It is half a night's journey, at full speed, said Bagheera, and Baloo looked very serious. I will go as fast as I can, he said, anxiously. We dare not wait for thee. Follow Baloo. It must be the quick-footed, Kaa and I. Feet or no feet, I can keep abreast of all thy four, said Kaa shortly. Baloo made one effort to hurry, but had to sit down panting, and so they left him to come on later, while Bagheera hurried forward at the quick panther canter. Kaa said nothing, but, strive as Bagheera might, the huge rock python held level with him. When they came to a hill stream, Bagheera gained, because he bounded across while Kaa swam, his head and 2 feet of his neck clearing the water, but on level ground Kaa made up the distance. By the broken rock that freed me, said Bagheera, when twilight had fallen, thou art no slow goer. I am hungry, said Kaa. Besides, they call me the speckled frog. Worm, earthworm, and yellow to boot. All one. Let us go on, and Kaa seemed to pour himself along the ground, finding the shortest road with his steady eyes and keeping to it. Now in the Cold Lairs the monkey people were not thinking of Mowgli's friends at all. They had brought the boy to the lost city and were very much pleased with themselves at the time. Mowgli had never seen an Indian city before, and though it was almost a heap of ruins, it seemed very wonderful and splendid. Some king had built it long ago on a little hill. You could still trace the stone causeways that led up to the ruined gates, with the last splinters of wood hung down to the worn, rusted hinges. Trees had grown into and out of the walls, and the battlements were tumbled down and decayed, and the wild creepers hung out of the windows of the towers on the walls, busily hanging clumps. A great roofless palace crowned the hill, and the marble of the courtyards and the fountains was split and stained with red and green, and the very cobblestones in the courtyard where the king's elephants used to live had been thrust up and parted by grasses and young trees. From the palaces you could see the rows and rows of roofless houses that made up the city, looking like empty honeycombs filled with blackness, the shapeless blocks of stone that had been an idol in the square where 4 roads met, the pits and dimples at street corners where the public wells once stood, and the shattered domes of temples with wild figs sprouting on their sides. The monkeys called this place their city, and pretended to despise the jungle people because they lived in the forest. And yet they never knew what the buildings were made for, nor how to use them. They would sit in circles on the hall of the king's council chamber, and scratch for fleas, and pretend to be men, or they'd run in and out of the roofless houses and collect pieces of plaster and old bricks in a corner, and forget where they had hidden them, and fight and cry in scuffling crowds, and then break off to play up and down the terraces of the king's garden, where they would shake the rose trees and the oranges in sport to see the fruit and flowers fall. They explored all the passages and dark tunnels in the palace and the hundreds of little dark rooms, but they never remembered what they had seen and what they had not, and so drifted about in ones or twos or crowds, telling each other that they were doing as men did. They drank at the tanks and made the water all muddy, and then they fought over it, and then they would all rush along in mobs and shout, "There's no one in the jungle so wise and good and clever as strong and gentle as the Bandar log." And then all would begin again, and they grew tired of the city and went back to the treetops, hoping that the jungle people would notice them. And here we end today's section of the Jungle Book. We will continue with the story of Mowgli in the ancient city tomorrow, Carl. Now, I genuinely love that picture of the ancient Indian city lost in the jungle, overgrown with trees and creepers and all the rest of it. It takes me back to when I was a kid, and I really hope you've liked this one. I love you to pieces, Carl. Until tomorrow.